Let's talk about the run defense, though, and Fred Warner. The Niners this year giving up 4.7 yards per carry. That's high for them. They were really good against the run last year. Um, Also, Fred Warner, still a hell of a player, but I can't help but notice that I felt he was better the last 2 years, that he was outrageously special in 2019 and 2020. And, like last night, the big throw to Adams, the first one on the final drive. We'll talk about that in a minute. They call quarters, and I think the reason that Ryans would feel comfortable with that is, if you want to throw over the middle, that means you got to throw over Fred Warner. And he did. And, like Warner was kind of late getting that into his drop. He probably could have got more depth. There was no one in front of him. It was a clear pass. And he just didn't quite get back there, where I felt like last couple years, he was always a step ahead of the play. So Warner in particular, run defense in general, what are you seeing here?
I think the run defense, I think they have an issue in the sense that when they play split safety, and they played a lot of split safety yesterday, they don't, they're always down a gap in the run
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And
There's
I
no one
think a lot
there's
of,
no one two gapping.
yeah.
There's no
And,
one
but
accounting for two gaps. Yeah.
there's a lot of people that have broken down this defense, but it's the Fangio Staley defense. They're
Mhm.
known for playing split safety, and they're really the it defense in the modern NFL. And Rich Madrid, who I think everybody here would know because he's on Niners Twitter, he's done a breakdown, but a lot of people in general have done a breakdown, and they call it stealing a gap back in the run game when you're playing split safety. They anticipate certain runs and they fit runs a specific way in order to account for the fact that they're playing with a lighter box than a team who's playing single high, who is dropping their safety down into the box to give them that 8-man Seattle box, which makes it
Mhm.
very difficult to run on because they account for every gap with really good players. So I think that's kind of their problem. I think that when they're playing split safety, because of the way they're fitting these runs, it's an automatic 5 yards every time. If you just look up and see split safety, you can just turn around and hand the ball off, and there's going to be one gap available that's not accounted for. And good running backs like Aaron Jones is going to make
Yeah.
things happen
Yeah.
when he does have that available space. And then your issue is if they go to any sort of single high, it turns into one-on-one on the outside against corners that struggle, are not the most gifted. They're competing, they play hard, they do the best they can, but playing one-on-one against Devontae Adams is a bad situation for anybody not named Jalen Ramsey. So it's a really tough spot that way. I think Fred Warner, more or less, I agree with you. It just feels like he's a step, maybe I wouldn't say slower, because he still
Not
looks
slower.
every bit like Fred Warner, but the reaction
Yes.
time maybe doesn't
The
feel as
anticipation. Yeah.
it doesn't feel as elite as it was. But I just think it's just the growing pains of a couple small tweaks in their coordinator, and the fact that they have a less
Yeah.
experienced coordinator. I think the one
I
thing
think
that
it's a
made Robert
communication thing.
Saleh really good,
Yep.
and I want to talk about this. The one thing that made Robert Saleh really good, especially the last 2 years, is one, obviously the Niners defense was very comfortable playing within their defense, but they were also very comfortable defending offense's staple concepts within their offense. Like with their defense, the way they were going to play it, they always were ready for what an offense does in the run game, what an offense does in the pass game, and they would come out and they would just take that all away. They did it to the Rams and McVay. Their staples, they just did it. The second time they played Kyler Murray, their staple concepts, they just take it away. And Fred Warner, and was one of those players that
Yeah.
was just all over it. And I just
Yeah.
think that maybe they're not as well game planned, and who can expect them to? Robert Saleh was very, very good, and D'Amico Ryan's right now is this his first year. He might become as good a game planner as Saleh, but it's going to take some time. So I think that's part of it. And then I think
I got a theory. Hold
maybe
on. I
I'm
got a
just
theory.
guessing. I
Let
think
me
there just might be a little too much on Fred Warner's plate at this point.
I got a theory too. This is something that I've been thinking about, talked to a coach about. It's an interesting concept. We talked about this with Jared Goff and Sean McVay. Like, they made a big point about it. Remember, McVay can talk to Goff in the helmet until there's 15 seconds left on the play clock, then they shut it off. And McVay was giving a lot of direction. It wasn't just the play call. It was like, look for this. If you see this, do this. I don't know, but it seems like maybe there was some of that going on with Robert Saleh. I wouldn't put it past Saleh. He wouldn't talk about it, but he's that smart. He's that level. And I just wonder if that's part of losing Saleh, is that communication pre-snap. I'd love to know. It's something that popped in my mind. I'll be a journalist. I'll find out. I'm not asking you to confirm it. I'm just saying it popped in my mind. I wonder, because you hear about it on offense. You hear about it
I
with
I
coaches
think
and
that's
their
a I think
quarterback.
that's a thought, but honestly, I don't. buy it as much because you do see Fred Warner making a lot of checks later in the
True.
clock, especially today or in Sunday's game and stuff. I don't know. I just think that the transition of a coordinator, all of that, I think people are so ready to jump on. But defense's regression is just a natural thing in the NFL. Like today, the Carolina
I'm just
Panthers
saying the
defense looked elite.
pre-snap communication is an interesting variable wrinkle because you talk about it on offense.
No,
We,
it's definitely
yeah,
possible.
yeah,
I don't mean to dismiss it. I think
yeah.
it's definitely a
Dare
possibility.
dismiss it.